Hi, this is Corey Rogers, Vice President of Marketing for National Equipment Dealers. We're here on location at Lexington, North Carolina. We have 18 locations around the United States, all throughout North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, and Texas. Today, we're going to review Bell articulated dump trucks, how to operate the trucks, how to do your pre-check inspection, what are the most important features that you should be aware of, as well as what are some of the things that you should not do in order to keep these trucks running efficiently and productively. If you're with TransAsh, there's a number of things that you're not allowed to do with a Bell truck when operating on a TransAsh site. So we'll talk about and point out some of those things so that you're aware of them and you're able to operate the Bell trucks properly when operating on a TransAsh site. I'm standing here with Seth Thomason, our service manager here at the Lexington, North Carolina branch. Seth's going to assist me a little bit about showing and pointing out some of the things to do during your pre-check inspection as well as in the cab and how to operate the trucks. So with that, Seth, we're going to point out a few things that are really important that operators need to take into account before they start to operate the truck in the morning before their shift. The first thing would be to walk around the machine and certainly look for leaks. There's a lot of different areas where you want to make sure you check and there's nothing leaking on the ground. You also want to look at all your lights. You want to look at your headlights and your tail lights. You want to clean those off and make sure that you're getting all the brilliance and illumination out of them that you can. The rear view camera, we'll walk around there, Seth, and point out where that's located. So you want to make sure that you clean off the lens so that when you're backing up, you can see everything behind you to avoid any safety issues. It's also important before you start your shift to look under the machine, under all of your axles, make sure there's no debris, inspect for any kind of debris that might be caught up in there that needs to be removed prior to starting to operate the truck. You also want to check your tire pressure, and you need to feel that if it's low. Right at the ladder that gives you entry to the cab, you'll notice right below the step there is a recommended tire inflation chart. And I think these tires, Seth, are Michelin tires, the 875 size tires. So you have a certain specification for your tire inflation on the front axle, and you have for the two rear axles, you've got another tire specification. So refer to that chart, put a tire gauge on there, check your air pressure every day, just to make sure that you've got the proper tire inflation before starting your shift. So obviously the other thing is to point out if you do need to fill your DEF fluid or your fuel for the day, the DEF and the fuel are colored differently and they're located separately. So you've got your DEF, which is colored with a blue cap, and then your diesel, which is covered with a green cap. And that is on the right-hand side of the machine looking forward. We typically recommend to keep your DEF tank at 50% or more. If you let it go below 50%, there's more of a likelihood of having issues. So it's just always a good practice to keep your DEF tank at 50% full or more. You also probably want to fill your DEF tank when you fill your diesel tank. And just do that as a daily practice. Always try to keep your DEF tank as full as possible. You also want to check the sight glass on the drop box. Very important, and I would do that on a daily basis. Seth's pointing out the sight glass on the drop box. We'll get in a little closer to where we can see that. But that's something that should be done daily. That is not something that would show up on the daily pre-check screen. Lastly, all of these machines come with auto lube as a standard feature. And using a standard grease gun, you can fill the auto lube reservoir. And Seth will show us where that reservoir is located. And every day prior to your shift, you want to make sure that you fill that full of grease. If there's no grease in there, your auto lube system is not going to function. So you have to fill that tank up in order to make sure and ensure that your auto lube system is functioning properly. There is a max fill level that you want to fill the auto lube reservoir up to, and you want to make sure you don't exceed that level. So that's something you should do on a daily basis. If you stop for lunch, check it at lunch, and you may even check it at the end of your shift. So before we get into the cab, I just want to explain with Seth, doing your pre-check inspection daily is very important. We talked about some of the things that you need to do. In order to check your fluid levels, though, you actually go through the computer itself in order to do that. And so Seth's going to access the cab. He's going to turn the battery disconnect switch from the off position to the on position. and then he will start up the machine without cranking the engine. He will initiate the system so that he can access the self-check screen, which will then give you access to fluid levels and let you know whether there's something that needs to be filled or whatnot.
So starting out, of course, after doing the master switch, what you want to do is you want to hit your green button, which is your system initiation or startup. The system is going to boot, come up with a screen that's going to ask you for your driver identification number. What that's going to be is, unless it is set up per customer request, it's always going to be the last 4 serial of the machine. So this one here is going to be, I believe, if you don't mind, Corey, it is 89928. So then after, like I said, you find out your PIN number, you would type that in. And on the keypad, it shows in the bottom right-hand corner of the lower pad the numbers that you would use for your keypad.
Okay.
So like I said, after you do that, you get your right pin in. It's going to come up with your initial system, right? And this is your home screen, I would call it. So after starting, you've done your walk-around check. First thing you want to do for your pre-shift, of course, is your E button is your menu. So you would click your menu button. You're going to get 5 tabs. Diagnostics is going to be the one that you would use for your pre-check. You would click that, and what comes up is your list of fluids and everything that needs to be pre-checked for this truck before startup. Engine oil always has to be checked with engine off, and it is the opposite for transmission oil level. Transmission is a little bit more picky. It requires a certain temperature, and then it also requires the engine to be running in neutral. Once you've done your initial checks of the engine off, you would then proceed to crank the engine, get the transmission warmed up, and I believe the number is 109 to 110 degrees is what they like to check the temperature at for the transmission. Once it's reached temperature and done its countdown is when it will go through its check of the screen for the transmission level. The good thing about the larger trucks is that the larger trucks also have the dipstick option, which you can check that cold or hot. So what you would do is crank the engine, check it in neutral, and then, with a rag, of course, go to the front of the engine, lift the hood, and check your dipstick in neutral. So the big trucks, well, actually all the new trucks from 30 and up actually have automatic hoods. So the button is located underneath your keypads. And you would just hold that until you hear a couple clicks. And once you hear a couple clicks, let go, because if you do continue to hold the button, you can cause problems. So once the hood's all the way up, you just walk around your catwalk, following the handrails, and all your dipsticks up in front of the engine. So engine oil is located here at the bottom of the engine. It is your the red twist lock dipstick here. Just give it a good tug. And as you can see, there is a high and a low mark, and you always want to be in the crosshatch area. If you're below it, you're too low, and if you're above it, you're too high. So always check that. And then your coolant reservoir is here located under this cover. But for coolant, to check it manually under the cap, you would have to take the cover off, but in the screen, it does check by sensor. So there's really no need to take this cover off unless you're adding fluid to it. So we're going to check the transmission fluid right now using the dipstick method. Always think of your windshield washer fluid bottle, and directly below that is located your transmission dipstick. It's the same style twist lock. You would pull it out. Of course, right now the engine is, but with the engine running in neutral is where you want to check it. You have the same crosshatch area, high and low, cold and hot. And what you want to do is check, make sure you're in that crosshatched area. And if you're not, of course, add fluid. And you can add fluid in the same hole that the dipstick comes out of. Hey guys, this is Seth here again with National Equipment Dealers, helping Corey Rogers out with driving the belt truck around for him and getting some nice in-cab footage. So of course I'm in the truck, seat belted up. We're going to start the truck, of course, with our green button, get the screen popped up and initiated, and it's going to prompt us, of course, for the driver identification number, and that is 8992, found on the serial tag here on the cab. Once you're up at your home screen, of course, you've checked your fluids, you've done your pre-check, you've got your seatbelt on, everything's good to go. You'd hit your green button, and it's going to prompt the start countdown. And of course, once it's started, this truck has been running, so the air pressure and brake pressure and everything's built up just fine. You'd want to hit your air Cushion ride for the seat, that switch there in the front, and that's going to pick you up, and that way you got a nice comfortable ride. And once that airs up, we should be good to go. So as you can see here, you've got your park light indicated. Light is on, meaning park is engaged. You've got neutral indicated, so what you would do to start and embark is, cut your park brake off while holding the brake, of course. As long as you're safe to pull away, you would then hit drive. You're going to feel the shift engage, and then you can let off the brake and give it a little bit of gas, and the park brake should release. And after that, you are good to go. So what we're going to do now is we're going to pull up this pile and act like we've got a load in the truck, but of course we do not. But we're going to pull up here. We're going to, come to a complete stop, hit our reverse button. As soon as we're shifting into reverse, the screen, the main screen here will light up with the backup camera fully lit. Now, of course, use your mirrors and your backup camera to watch where you're going. You're going back all the way up to a pile, and you're going to fully stop once you get where you need to be. Shift to neutral, and in the mode we are currently in, we do not have any I-tip features set. So what it's going to be is fully manual up, fully manual down, with no throttle assist, and I'll show that. So what you would do is you'd hit the button, the bed will start going up, you would then hold the throttle, and that would speed that process up, and you would let the bed go all the way up to as high as it'll go. So just continue to let that bed go up, you'll feel it stop. You can then let go of the button. And of course, then what you would do is hold the button going down, and you can give it throttle going down, but it will limit. It will limit RPM to a certain point. But you can see that I do have to manually hold the buttons. And then we're going to pull away, and that is one bed dump. As you can see here too, I'm gonna go ahead and hit the light commands. We can cut on our headlights and our park lights. We can cut on all our work lights if need be. Of course, if it's nighttime, we'll cut those back off. Of course, if it requires it on your job site, you can cut your strobe on and just leave that on. Obviously, we don't have that plugged in right now, so we do not need that. We can hit the camera button if we want to watch what's behind us and have that pulled up. In the conditions that we're in on hard packed ground, there is no need to hit our inner differential lock or our center differential locks. So I'm going to leave that one be, but in the case you're in a stuck condition, you do have that option. And for this bed dump, we're going to have it in what we call assisted driveline with soft stops. So that's going to be just the middle light indicated on your I-tip feature. So we're going to back up to the light again, or to the pile again, I'm sorry. We're going to back up, come to a stop again, put it in neutral, and hold that button. You press it one time. As you can see, I have fully let go. The bed is going up on its own. Engine revs up to full RPMs, and it's going to do that all on its own with no assistance. And once it reaches full capacity and full height, it's going to stay there until you prompt to pull the bed back down. So then you would press the bend down button, and it will initiate the sequence on its own, once again not assisted, to put that bend back down all the way in the fully lowered position. And of course, by TranSash regulations, you would have to wait for that bed to go all the way down before you would pull away. So as you can see here, I just want to show this too, for example, that the park brake light is not indicated, but we are in neutral, and this truck is equipped, as we've mentioned, with the auto park brake. So in neutral, the park brake is engaged, so there, I can let off the brake and we're not going to roll anywhere. That's also part of the hill assist and hill takeoff, but you do not need to engage the park brake every time you engage neutral, because it does automatically engage the park brake for you in neutral. So this is the end of your shift. Now we're going to come to a complete stop here. At your end of your shift, you're going to park the truck in its designated parking spot. You of course make sure the bed's all the way down. Of course it is. You can leave all the features on that you want. You can leave your HVAC at its current setting and always change that the next shift. Of course, cut all your lights off, but you can leave the I-tip feature on. We're going to shift to neutral. We're then going to apply the park brake, and after that, you are set to cut the truck off. So you would just press the stop button. And for this truck's current status, the batteries do need a charge, so it's going to initiate a battery charge. Most trucks that have been ran all day won't have that kick in, so what you would do then again, just to override this battery charge in this instance, is you would tap the red button again, and it's still going through its turbo spin down sequence. And of course, like we mentioned before, you do not want to override that turbo spin down, so you let it go through that countdown. The truck, as you can see, will fully cut off, and after that you can see that it's indicated on the screen to cut your master switch off. So as you exit the truck, you can cut your master switch off, and that is all that required, and that's the end of your day.
So I'm here in the cab with Seth Thomason, our service manager in Lexington, North Carolina, and we're going to review the new iteration of the SSM Kepad. SSM stands for Sealed Switch Module. Basically, that's the control panel that the operator will use most of the time to operate the truck. All your major functions and features are located on that control panel. So before we start to review all of the features and functions on the SSM Kepad, in order to initiate the system on the truck and to start the truck, we're going to hit the green button to start the system up. And the system's going to ask us for a driver identification number, which is a 4-digit number. That is specific to each and every truck. That number is found on the serial number plate on the rear column near the entry door, and it is a 4-digit number. It's the last 4 digits of the PIN number or the serial number. In this case, it's 8992. So if we look at the bottom portion of the SSM Kepad, we have numbers on some of these buttons, and those are the numbers we would press to enter the driver identification number. So 8992. Now what we've done is we've initiated the system. So the system has booted up, we've initiated the system, and we're ready to do our system pre-check. In order to do the system pre-check, we're going to look at our B drive here, which has got a little multifunction knob that can be pressed to enter data or enter information, and it can be turned to switch from menu to menu or selection to selection. So when we press the B drive menu button, that's going to bring us to a series of 5 different menus. It's diagnostics, machine configuration, faults, machine ID, counters, and then back to diagnostics. So at the beginning of the day, when you're in the process of doing your pre-check inspection prior to operating the truck, you're going to want to go to the diagnostic screen. You can use this rotary knob here and press it in to enter into the menu. And as you can see, it's going to go through all of our major maintenance items, and it will give us a green check mark if we are in the good. So if we have sufficient levels of engine oil, engine coolant, our temperatures are in good shape, pressures are in good shape, we're going to see a green check mark associated with that. Pretty much everything on the daily pre-check can be seen in this screen. There are a couple of dipsticks available, as we've mentioned. You've got the engine oil dipstick, you've got the transmission oil dipstick on some of the bigger trucks. For the most part, the operator can check this screen during his daily pre-check procedure and ensure that all of his fluid levels and all of the key things that he needs to be aware of have been done. Just to reiterate, it's important to keep your DEF levels at 50% or greater. That's what we recommend. And whenever you fill up your fuel tank, make sure you fill up your DEF tank.
And Corey, I do want to note also that for engine oil, engine does have to be off. The engine oil sensor will not read if the engine is running. And also, I'd like to notate too that the accelerometers in these trucks are very sensitive, and that the trucks like to be in a flat, level position. If the truck is off kilter, front, back, side to side, it will come up with a red number, and that meaning that you're too far off level.
Okay.
And like I said, if you're too far off level, it will not read also. But engine oil check, engine must be off. And as far as the transmission oil check, transmission must be in neutral and the engine running, and then also transmission has to be at a specific temperature for it to read. And the transmission will actually read every time this truck sits throughout the day in its shift. The transmission will read every 120 seconds if it sits long enough. So the thing is, say you spring a leak in the transmission throughout the day and you're not aware of it. Well, the truck, if you sit long enough for 120 seconds, will read that and it'll start to throw a code. So throughout the day, let's say you have an issue with the transmission and the oil does start to drop, it will alarm the operator.
Okay,
Yep.
make him aware.
Yep.
Excellent. So that's the pre-check screen. We're going to get out of that. We'll hit the menu button to go back to the main screen again. The main screen's got some pretty nice features. Before we get into the SSM keypad, you have the ability to change what is displayed at the bottom of the screen. So, and you can see these kind of give you an indication of what the different submenus are. So if we change, this is the counter screen, so that's telling us how many dumps we've had throughout the course of the day. When we zeroed out the counters, it tells us what our production is. We can go into that. So each one of these, as we move from one to another, we can select it and it'll open it up. And so now it's telling us, we were just mentioning the counter screen, so it tells us the bin tip count, tells us our total load, fuel consumption. Now if we start to scroll this knob again, now we're on the drive line control. It's going to tell us what our retarder position is. It's going to tell us what our engine RPM is, so on and so forth. Site limit, so if we had a speed limit on site that we had set, it'll tell us that. And then if we switch again, this is going to tell us the roll and pitch of the truck. We have a great feature on Bell trucks that's called tip safe. If the truck exceeds 15% of grade in roll or pitch, then it will not allow you to raise the bin, and this is to prevent accidental rollover. We also have an onboard weighing system on all Bell trucks, and basically this information can be viewed right here, and you'll see what is in the truck, so you know whether you're at capacity, over capacity, what have you. As we scroll the knob a little more, this is going to give us warning information, fault code information, things like that we can have at the ready or have available to us on the display. And then you can also select the rear view camera. If you press again, you can deselect that, or you can see the rear view camera. There's also a way to have the rear view camera visible on the entire screen by pressing on the SSM keypad, as you can see there. Now we can have full screen rear view camera. If we press it again, it will go back to the small screen, and so we have the ability to adjust how we see the rear view camera. So we have the ability to go through all of these and select and change the information that is displayed in that little window on the front dash. Okay, now I'd like to talk about the SSM keypad, and Seth, just interject if you want to add some additional information to how to operate this. The new keypad is broken out into two separate sections. The previous series just had one section, and there were some functions that were embedded underneath certain buttons. But now the new keypad is very intuitive. It's very easy to understand. There are more easy to reach functions on here rather than having to go through a menu or something. Now you can access it directly from a button. So starting out at the top, this would be to start the truck. We've already done that. We would press the button. We would enter in our driver identification number, which are the last 4 digits of the serial number on the truck, accessible through the serial number plate on the rear corner post of the cab. You have your stop button. This would be your engine shutdown. When you're finished with your working day and you pull over and park in a safe location and you're ready to start the shutdown procedure, then you would select this button. And then by selecting this button, the truck is going to go through some automatic procedures. It's going to go through a turbo spin down to cool off the turbo. You're going to want to let that finish, and then the truck will automatically shut itself off. It will also be siphoning out DEF fluid from the lines, because we don't want to leave DEF fluid in the lines. And now the new trucks do that automatically. Even if you turn the battery disconnect switch off or the master switch on the outside of the cab off, the system will continue to siphon out those lines so that you don't accidentally turn it off while the system is doing that. The next button here is your hazard switch. If you've got to put your hazard lights on for whatever reason on the job site, that would be what you'd use. This is your parking brake. If the light is on, the parking brake is engaged. In order to start your start to drive away, you have to release the parking brake. Now neutral becomes your parking brake, and you would have to hit drive to start to go forward or reverse to go backward. And of course your neutral button here. These buttons right here are your air conditioning control buttons. So this would be to turn the AC on. If the light is on, it is on. This is your recirculate button, just like in an automobile. This would be your fan speeds. So you have 3 different fan speeds. The button down here would be to lower your temperature. This would be to increase your temperature. And it has auto climate control. So if you can set your temperature and it'll decrease, increase. Right here, this would be your vent selection. So basically, you know, how you want the air to flow through the different vents. Defrost, towards your face, towards your feet, so on and so forth. So these are your AC controls. This button here is your gear hold button. The gear hold button can be a very handy button if you're climbing a slope and you don't want the truck to automatically shift to a higher gear, for example. Let's say you want to keep it in second gear or third gear. When you're in second or third gear, you can select this button and it'll hold you in that gear until you achieve that slope, and then you can release the button and it'll go back to auto shift, automatic transmission.
I do want to note that too, Corey. You know, we mentioned earlier there is a grade chart on the windshield for the operator to view to see what exactly gear he needs to be in per percent of grade. But as you can see here, we've got a grade chart. And what it's going to pretty much explain is you got your max grade, and then a continuous, and that's for a short period of time. And then the continuous, which meaning, you know, you're going to sustain that grade for a long period of time. And then this is here is the gear indicator. And then of course, max mile per hour and kilometers per hour in that grade or slash gear. So as you can see, you know, of course, anything 25% and up is a very severe grade. They do not recommend the truck go above a 25% grade. As you can tell, that's why it's the max on the chart. You know, for 25% grade, either short duration or continuous duration, you know, you can do, you're allowed first and second gear. It's very highly recommended to sustain first gear for as long as possible, just to keep wear and tear off the transmission, engine, driveline, all that good stuff. It makes it a lot easier on the engine and transmissions to sustain that grade for a long period of time in first gear.
So one nice feature that the Bell trucks have is, by way of the accelerator pedal, you have the ability to press down, and if you push it harder, you'll feel it click. Again, push the accelerator, push it all the way to the floor, you'll feel that click. That is what we call the kick down, and that puts you in the lowest gear range, so that if you're climbing out of a steep slope with a heavy load, you will go into the lowest gear range and have maximum torque to be able to achieve that climb. The next button here is our differential lock button. These trucks have automatic traction control from the B30E size truck to the B40, B45, and the B50E that we're sitting in today. They have automatic traction control. So what does that mean? That means that your interaxle differential lock, the IDL, will automatically engage when you have wheel slip. We also have CTD, which is controlled traction differential, which is actually a transverse differential lock. So from side to side, it locks it up and you get true 6-wheel drive. That's a momentary lock though, so it's only going to give you 30 seconds of that additional tractive effort. So in order to do that, if we want to manually engage IDL, in other words, it's not automatically being engaged, we would select this and one light would be illuminated. And that's manually engaging the IDL. So from front to rear, the interaxle diff lock would lock up. If we need that additional tractive effort, then we would hold this button in. Now 2 lights are illuminated, and for 30 seconds we have cross axle differential lock, CTD, okay? So, and then that will disappear as soon as wheel slip is, as soon as we gain traction again with the truck. So really nice feature. Again, it's automatically applied unless you need that additional tractive effort, and true locked 6x6 drive, then you would put the CTD feature on by holding the button in, and that will engage and then release after 30 seconds.
And Corey, I do want to note also, just with that, in the true locked 6-wheel drive with the 2 lights on, you have to be very careful to not do that on hardpack. We highly advise customers to not lock all 6 wheels on hardpack and then try to turn. It can cause differential damage, axle damage, if done too many times. So you just want to make sure that you're only using that type of traction control on very slippery, wet, muddy surfaces.
Absolutely. On the bottom portion of the SSM keypad, we start off with these 2 buttons. This is to activate a manual regen, and this is to shut it off. We don't recommend you shut it off. If you're going to start it, let it finish.
We also don't recommend you do a manual regen unless you've received a warning that has indicated that you need to pull over and conduct a regen. There's different levels of severity of those warnings. You don't want to avoid those warnings. You want to do it when you have the earliest convenience to do it. If it is a more severe warning, then you need to do it right away, meaning that you would need to pull the truck over, park it in a safe position, and perform a manual regen. We do recommend that you speak with your supervisor before doing that, just to be sure that, you know, you may need some assistance with that, or they may want to be a part of it. So in order to do a regen, you would press this button, it'll start its own process, and then it will finish. If you, for some reason, for a safety purpose, you had to shut it off prematurely, you could hit this button and that would shut off the regen process. But we do not recommend you do that. It can create unnecessary fault codes and issues and service calls, which we want to avoid.
I do want to note also, cutting the truck off is also the same as canceling. So, you know, if the regen is on and you do cut the truck off, it would be the exact same as if you were to hit the cancel button, and it'll be the exact same sequence.
Good point. So if you've got a regen running and you were to hit the stop button to shut the truck off, then you're going to cancel that sequence, which is going to create issues. So we recommend, if you're going to do a regen, it's recommending that you do a regen, it's requiring that you do a regen. You can do that by way of just pushing a button, but don't do it accidentally. Certainly don't shut it off if you can avoid that. The next button are your windshield wiper speeds, and if you press and hold, that is the washer fluid.
Right. Yep.
So you've got 3 different windshield wiper speeds and a washer fluid, that just like in an automobile. The following button is your camera button. So if you want to get full screen of the rear view camera on your front dash, then you can hit this button and that'll go from the small window, if that's selected, to full screen. Down here we have our beacon. If we select that, I think there's 2 different, is it just on and off, Seth?
On and off, yeah.
So here we have our beacon, even though we have 2 light positions. If it's on, the beacon's on. If it's off, the beacon's off. The next button would be heated mirrors. That would turn both your left and right side mirror on so that they're heated for defrost purpose, or if you've got ice and cold conditions outside.
Yep.
The following button, this is a parameters button. It's really not a used button, but if there are certain specific parameters that need to be set or preset, then that's the button that you would use for that. This button is your speed limitation switch, and basically when you press that, you can have some programmed speed limitations. I think there are 2 separate programs that can be put in there. TranAsh operators are not permitted to set the speed limitation. There are certain speed requirements and limitations on site, and you would need to confer with your supervisor in order to be sure that you're driving accordingly to what is permitted there, but they do not want you to set the speed limitation. So as we get down to the bottom portion of the second portion of the keypad, we have our driving lights, or our headlights. So basically both lights illuminated would be all the lights. The first light would just be the park lights.
Yep.
So this is all your headlights, and just one light illuminated would be your parking lights. Right. Your high and low beams are done by way of the shift lever here. Down would be high beam, back would be low beam.
Yep.
You have your horn located right here. The next button would be your work lights. And Seth, can you talk to which work lights it turns on?
The first light is just your cab. And the second light, when they're both illuminated, would be your cab and your articulation lights and rear facing lights. And then if you click it again, it'll just be your articulation lights, just the middle light, and then of course no lights illuminated would be no lights.
Okay. And these next buttons, this is your brake retarders. All the Bell trucks use hydraulic brake retarders and exhaust brake retarders, and these control the severity of the application of those brake retarders. So the more you go down with less lights, you'll have 0 to 15% retarder effective. As you start to increase, it goes to 25, 35, 45, 60%, 75%, and with all the lights illuminated, you'll be at 100% brake retardation. So if you're going up and down steep slopes, this is going to help to save your brakes. It's going to give you better braking action, and it's just a great feature on the Bell trucks.
Right.
As far as the I-tip is concerned, we have right here, if we were to select it, then you can see on the screen it tells us that's with hard stops. And what was not selected was the driveline assist. So driveline assist is an automatic feature that allows the operator to simply press the bin up button. The parking brake is automatically applied. It is put into neutral, and the engine RPM increases so that you can rapidly raise the bin just by the touch of one button. That is not on when just one light is illuminated. So as you can see, one light is illuminated, then that is hard stops. Hard stops means it's going to stop abruptly and it's going to shake material out of the back of the bin. The hard stop feature is a nice feature, but if used too often, it can create excess of wear on the cylinders and packing. So we would recommend only using it in certain situations and periodically. If you were to select this button the second time, as you can see, now we have driveline assist. Now the driveline assist is engaged, so that is the automatic mode to where we hit the bin button and the bin will go up. The parking brake is applied, it's in neutral, and the engine RPM increases automatically. But that is with what we call soft stops. So it's not going to be as aggressive on the stop once the bin raises to its maximum. And that's going to be the safer way to handle raising the bin. If we were to hit it again, now that's going to be automatic driveline assist with the hard stop feature engaged. So the first time with one light is only hard stops, no. So you have to manually hold the bin to go up and manually hold the bin to come down. The second light illuminated is soft stops with driveline assist enabled. So you simply just have to press the bin up button one time, and to bring the bin down, you would press the bin down button. And then the third scenario would be with two lights illuminated, and that would be hard stops engaged and I-tip engaged, which means it will automatically apply the park brake, put the machine into neutral, increase your engine RPM, and by the touch of one button to raise, you can raise, and by the touch of one button to lower, you can lower. We recommend for most job sites just to have one light illuminated, just like this, and that would be driveline assist with soft stop. So as you are using the I-tip feature, you can just bend down and you can actually pull away, and your speed will be limited as the bin is coming down. And then once the bin gets down almost to horizontal, then your speed will be released and you can increase speed and drive away. Although in some cases, operators on other sites might pull away as the bin is lowering at a reduced speed, and on the TranSash sites, you're not permitted to do so. So you must wait until the bin is fully down before you can pull away and leave. You might be able to go forward 2 or 3 feet to clear the dump pile, but you must allow the bin to fully come down before departing and driving away. That is the policy on the TranSash site. So shutting down the truck is pretty simple. Once you have finished your workday, you're going to pull over to a safe location to park, and basically you're going to press the stop button, and once you press the stop button, if the machine has been running, which in the case of sitting in here in the bay, it's not, you're going to see a turbo spin down warning, meaning that the machine is going through a turbo spin down cooling process. And you have to allow that to stop, and it will go through its own process, and then the truck will shut itself off. So again, you'll use the stop button. It'll need to go through this full process of turbo spin down, and then it will shut itself down. Now, as you exit the cab, you will notice there will be a light right above the battery disconnect switch, the master switch. And the new trucks, any pin 3.0 and higher, the new trucks are designed such that they will go through a vacuum process of vacuuming out the lines that contain the DEF, so you don't have to wait until that light turns off to turn off the battery disconnect. If you have an old truck, you definitely need to wait until the red light were to go out before you can turn off the master switch. Seth, what are some other things in and around the controls? I know we've pointed out a few things on the SSM keypad and the front dash. We have down below here, this is your hood raise and lower.
Yes, sir. So on the new 30s, all the way up to every truck after that, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 60, so on and so forth. It does have an automatic hood raise and lower. The 25 and lower will still have the manual latch on the hood. And of course, next to that, you have your e-stop. And Corey will notate too, TranAsh Operators, on the e-stop button. Next to that, you have your window automatic mirror adjusters. So the Bell has a good feature of, you can adjust the mirrors by a switch, just like a car. And then below that, of course, is the B drive.
So specifically the emergency stop, your e-stop, if you had an emergency and you had to come to an abrupt, disruptive stop, then you could push this in, and it basically would apply all the brake retarders at 100%. and it would apply the park brake and bring you to a complete stop. You don't want to do that. We don't recommend you do that as stopping, but if you had an emergency and you had to do so, you could. To release that, you'll just simply pull back up, and then you can go about it. The mirrors, just like on a car, you have the ability to electronically control the position of the mirrors. This is a great feature, and if you look, you can select left side, right side, and as we look up, as we move this, we can select the position of the mirrors. In the front, we have a sunshade that can be pulled down. A very nice feature here. You can see, Seth, if you pull that down for us a little bit, you can kind of see how that works, and that can be pulled down to reduce the amount of glare in the truck. The other nice thing is we have the ability to tilt and telescope the steering wheel, and Seth, if you'll hold the camera here, I'll show how that's done. So in order to telescope, we're gonna unscrew this knob, and then we can telescope very easily the steering wheel. And then in order to tilt, we have an adjustment here, and we have the ability to tilt it up and down. Over here to the left, you've got your turn signal lever. Right, left, you have your horn, and you have your high beams and low beams. Yep. You got a radio right here, nice radio with a USB input if you've got music that you want to connect to that. The nice thing about the Bell trucks is you have a specialized jump port where by way of a special cable you can jump from within the cab, the truck, if need be. So it makes it very convenient to jump the truck if you need to do that. You have cup holders on the left side. You've got some open trays where you can store a lunchbox or anything that you might need to put there. You've got cup holders, bottle holders over here on the right-hand side, multiple vents around the cab.
You also want to mention too, you got the chiller area there by your arm. You got to put your food in.
This is a hot-cold storage box, I believe. It pipes in vent air into the box, so if you're running the heat, it's going to keep it warm. If you're running the cold, it's going to keep it cool. Nice feature there. The seat, we're going to talk about the seat in depth. This is a very advanced seat. It is an air ride seat, and there's all kinds of different adjustments, including heat, on this seat that you have the ability to adjust.
All right, Seth, we're going to talk a little bit about the seat adjustments on the Bell trucks, and they're pretty much the same across all the Bell trucks. Same seat.
I'll say the glory of a Bell truck is all the cabs are the same across the board. No matter what size truck, cab, operation, seat, everything will be the same. So starting off here from front to back, the very front button, of course, is your air ride fill button. So in the down position means no air in the bag. That is going to be a very uncomfortable position to ride in. So, you know, when the operator gets in the cab and he gets everything started up, he always wants to make sure he hits that in the up position. That's going to give you your cushion ride in the seat. Next to that is going to be your spring adjustment. So meaning, you know, it's going to have to adjust for your weight. The more, you know, the weight, the more increase in the suspension that you want. This right here is going to be your height adjustment. So the higher that is, the higher the seat will be. And then the lower that is, the lower the seat will be. Of course, you'll still have your air cushion ride, but it will adjust the height of your seat for you. After that, you've got some air switches for the lumbar and the backrest. So you can play with those and kind of get that fine-tuned to comfort you. Then after that, you've got your actual backrest adjustment. And then you've got an armrest that you can drop down. And if you look right there, there's a gray knob. And on both sides, what that gray knob does is it allows you to adjust the height of your armrest. So by unscrewing that, you can see by each little bit of adjustment, the armrest will actually go down. So you can fine-tune exactly where you want your armrest to be. And of course, right beside that, you've got your seat belt. And then that pretty much does it for this side of the seat. Here in the front of the seat, you can see you've got a combination of levers. This first lever here is kind of like an unlock and a lock for the bottom rest of the seat. What that does is allow your seat to kind of have a give to it. If you're hitting a bunch of bumps or stopping abruptly, they'll kind of give you some freedom to the bottom of the seat there. What this is right here is an adjustment to the bottom of your seat as well. So here you can see you can kind of slide that forwards and backwards. And then what this last one here does is will allow your seat tilt to change. And then lastly on the front here, you've got a full seat slide and back. That's what that bottom latch is for. And on the front of the seat, that's all you have. So lastly, on the right side of the seat here, you can see right here located by the seat buckle, is your seat heater on and off switch.
All right, another thing, Seth, I think that's very convenient in terms of training purposes, if you've got a new operator on the job site, Bell puts a nice convenient jump seat in there so that the trainer can ride along with the new operator and train. And you can kind of see that seat here if you'll unfold it.
So it's all you gotta do is pull the bottom out, and then you'll see the groove in the back of the seat here. If you just follow that groove, it'll latch in on its own. And of course, it's got its own seat belt and seat buckle.
Nice.
And then it just folds right away. So all you gotta do is slightly pick up the front here, and you'll see the back tilt down. And once you get to the very bottom where it won't move no more, you'll just slightly push down on the back there, and you'll see it'll follow the groove and slide right back in.
So Seth, we talked about that jumper cable. I think you've got one on hand here. I wanted to show everyone what one of those looks like. And of course you would source and order that through us. It's a Bell part, and you'd be able to just simply plug that in on the inside of the cab to jump the truck if your batteries were to be out of juice. So let's take a look at that cable, what that looks like, Seth.
You can see one end right here. This is the end that would plug into your truck.
Yep.
You can tell ours is well used, of course. This is what they put in the inside of the cab itself. It is, obviously, you can tell one way, so you cannot mess it up. And then on the other end, of course, is just your regular jumper cables that you would hook to whatever source you're using to jump it off.
Let's demonstrate where that is plugged in at in the cab.
So what I usually do, curious. So as you can tell, once you get up here, what you'll do is you pull your cable and then locate it under the dash here. It's kind of tight to get into, but it is hidden away in there. And as you can tell, the longer portion of this cable goes towards the front of the truck. And just find the slot, squeeze it in there, and that is all you need to do to jump the truck off.
So for our TransAsh customer, there are a few things that we want to make sure we emphasize as it relates to operating a Bell truck. A couple things that are requirements or that you're prevented from doing as an operator on a TransAsh site. So first and foremost, there's some features on a Bell truck. There's something called hill hold, hill assist, to where the parking brake will automatically apply when you release the accelerator on a hill under load. But at a TransAsh site, you are not permitted to do this. You must keep your foot on the brake pedal at all times. That is not permitted to do at a TransAsh site. So even though the truck may have that capability, we do not recommend that, nor is it permitted by TransAsh. The other thing is the e-stop button, the emergency stop button. We highly recommend that you don't use that unnecessarily. If it's absolutely necessary, it's available to you, but it will bring the truck to a very abrupt, disruptive stop. So it's definitely not something to stop the truck on a regular basis. The other things, the new trucks, the new SSM Kepad, as we might have mentioned before, have the ability to perform a manual regen by the touch of a button. If the truck requires a regen, then we do recommend you pull the truck over, park the truck in a safe spot, notify your supervisor, and then conduct the regen process by pressing the button. What we don't want to do, and we certainly want to ask you to be careful about, is don't hit the stop button and allow that regen process to take place. Allow that regen process to continue and to finish. You don't want to cancel it. You don't want to stop it. And if you're getting warnings that the truck needs to stop and have a regen performed, don't continue to cancel those warnings. Pull the truck over, stop it, notify your supervisor, and perform a manual regen. Another nice feature of the Bell trucks that has a feature that is not permitted on a TransAsh site is the I-tip feature. You can use the I-tip feature. You can raise the bend by the touch of one button, and you can lower the bend by the touch of one button. But the Bell trucks do permit driving away at a very slow, regulated speed as the bend were to come down. That is not permitted on a TransAsh site. So you definitely do not want to depart, pull away, and allow the bend to go down as you're driving. You can move forward 2 or 3 feet from the pile, and then you need to stop, have your foot on the brake, allow the bend to come down, and then you can take off again. That is the TranSash regulation.
Another thing we want to notate on the TranSash regulations that is highly recommended and a lot of times enforced with the Bell trucks is that the operator should keep the DEF level above 50%. It's going to keep a lot of the DEF issues away. Big thing is moisture in the tank, on a hot day. The good note that we like to tell operators is, every time you fill that truck up, fill the DEF up. If you see it start to creep below 50, 50% is just go ahead and try to make your way back to the filling station and fill that up.
So another thing that we talked about as far as TransAsh is related is the tailgates.
Right,
and you,
right.
you mentioned a couple of things about that.
Yeah, so every TransAsh truck, PDI, they all get tailgates installed. And per our PDIs for TransAsh, we do orange stripe each bolt that mounts that onto the bed itself. So part of the PDI process, pre-check process for TransAsh is to go by every single bolt that mounts that tailgate on and check the orange stripe to see for movement. If that bolt has moved, then of course they would note that to their supervisor and probably down that truck until the bolt is retorqued, remarked. But yes, that is a standardized thing that we do for every TransAsh customer, is to stripe each bolt mounting the tailgate on.
Okay. Right. So those are some of the parameters specific to TransAsh that may be different from what maybe the truck's capabilities are, but we want to make sure we reinforce those factors and make sure that you are consulting with your supervisor and you're aware of what is permitted on a TransAsh site. Seth, I really appreciate you taking a few minutes with us, man, going through inside the cab, going through the SSM Kepad, doing the walk around, and all the kind of information you provided to us. We've got such a great resource here in Seth and his team here in the Lexington, North Carolina location. We've got 18 locations around 5 states where we can support you with Bell trucks, with all kinds of other brands of equipment as well. And please look us up on the web at www.nedealers.com. If you have any questions, there's a little Ask Ned button there. You can select that, submit your questions, request a quote, anything like that at that point. Thank you very much.